Hey, Rick, you know what's awesome?
What's that?
Remembering Christmas, Christmas memories.
Show enough.
And then I want to, for whatever reason, because I know that our guitar intro just played, but I also want to cut that little piece in that says, "Do they know it's Christmas time at all?" Because most of my Christmas memories are either really good from being very young and still having that belief in all of the good things about humanity, and also just being a really horribly cynicized retail salesman.
True.
Working in both a Radio Shack and a sporting goods store at Christmas time, where you just have to look at the person in front of you and just be like, "Don't you have somewhere else better to be?"
Yeah.
So I'm a bit like I'm on the cynical side, and on. How about yourself?
For me, man, when I hear the phrase Christmas memories, I just start thinking about, well, definitely the stuff that we're going to talk about, but just family stuff, right? I feel like Clark Griswold when I'm locked upstairs in the attic, and I pull out that 8 millimeter tape, and you know your aunts and uncles, and just what all that meant at the time, and you start thinking about all the ones that are no longer with you, and just what that means, and they're just as much a part of Christmas as anything else is.
Hmm. I'm right there with you, man. Growing up, I had a big family, but I had a big family that was mostly old.
Hmm.
So I remember being a kid, and my dad would be like, and so we're from, strangely enough, we're not from the South. You're from the South, but you're like several hundred miles north.
Yeah.
I'm from Southeast Texas, so we're technically considered the West, or actually kind of even not there. If you look at a map of, like, anytime you hear anybody be like, "Well, off to the south we have, you know, Arkansas," you're like, "Well, we're way down here." But no, like my whole family's came out of Louisiana, and so when my dad would say the word aunt,
Yeah.
but whenever we'd get around other folks, it would be your aunt.
Right.
You got your aunt Lisa and your aunt Claudia and your aunt
Yep.
Bernice. And
I had a Aunt Poochie.
yep, you got your
Aunt
aunts.
Poochie.
And back then, like, I think my grandmother was one of 10 children. She was like the second youngest, but the youngest because the youngest was a boy. So she was the baby. But just the aunts and the aunts and the aunts, and you'd go visit the cousins, and there'd be 1,400 children running around, and they were all named you. They're like,
Yeah.
God, when I was in high school, we went to a funeral, and somebody would say Billy, and I'd turn my head, and there would also be like 40 other people like had just turned their head, and all of us were like, yeah, like, not you, not you, not you, not you, not you, not you. And but yeah, big families running
Yeah.
around with kids, like cousins you never knew, and you
Right.
run around. You have that awesome night where you're just, like, the lights are on, the parents are not telling you to come inside, and you could just run around and play guns and like kick each other in the head like Karate Kid style, and nobody's saying nothing until somebody cries. You know?
Well,
Somebody.
mine is, it goes back to, it was always just me and my cousin Gary, which I think we talked a little bit about before, but they had to buy us exactly the same things because World War III would happen if somebody got something that the other one wanted. So, but as far as the kids, you know, uh, every other year or so, we would have a big family gathering like that where it was the Morgans and the Hueys and all these people, and it would be they would rent out a place that's big enough to hold 60 people, and it became those kind of things. But that didn't happen that often, just every once in a while. But um, our family, really wasn't that big. I mean, when I think about growing up and for Christmas, there was, my dad, his two brothers, his sister, and that was the makeup of the family, and then whoever they were with at the time. That changed pretty often too. But yeah, I think maybe I talked about them tearing up my toys all the time, but I'd get cool stuff for Christmas, and then they'd mess with them, and then they wouldn't work anymore. And
uh, your cousins would mess with them?
no, my uncles, my uncles would.
Oh,
Yeah, man, I got this cool GI Joe one year. They had this flashlight on his chest, and you get this Triceratops looking thing, but it had 6 legs, and it would come running at him, and you could shoot just flashlight, and it had a sensor underneath its chin, and it would make it freeze, and the eyes would light up, and it just go, you know. And my uncle grabbed it and was messing with it, and he broke the head off the dang thing. So now I
oh
get this
no.
now I get this 6-leg Triceratops with no head on it, and there's just a light bulb sticking up. So
Oh, that's rough, bro.
yeah.
That sucks.
And my Uncle Bob, he ran my Evil Knievel across the highway when I first got it for Christmas, and the car ran over him.
Oh no.
So yeah, and they were just when I think back on it, I mean, here I am, I'm 6, 7 years old. My aunts and uncles are only in their 20s,
Yeah.
so they're still kids, so it's just weird when you think about that, and you think about who they are to you, and realistically they were just kids in their 20s that still didn't have life figured out, and well, my dad said the other day, we were talking at Thanksgiving about, he said, I think I played with that Evil Knievel more than you did. So, but yeah, gathering, I lived, my grandparents lived in a little place that's not far from where I live right now. It's called Pillowville. That's right, Pillowville.
Pillowville.
Pillowville. And that's where we had all of our Christmases. And, my grandmother would cook the meal, and my grandfather was the coolest man on the planet. And, and that's, I miss those days very, very badly.
So we always had, with family, so my grandmother, the history of my family is weird because my grandfather, my dad's dad, my uncle's dad, he passed away in like 1973 or 4, something like that.
Wow.
So before I was born,
Mm.
I was born in 75. My uncle was like 10 years old whenever his dad died. And then my grandmother remarried. And so the only grandfather I ever knew was Grandpa Welch. And so my dad had already left home by the time my grandmother remarried. So you can imagine that sort of tension of like,
Yeah.
well, he's not my dad. Like,
Right.
and then my uncle was 10, so he's like, well, he's buying me guitars and football pads, so we're cool.
Yeah.
So there was tension and stuff. So my folks were over here, but my dad always had a really good relationship with his mom, and so my grandmother was kind of the linchpin in the family as far as, I mean, she would always make sure that everybody was there, and if everybody wasn't there, she would always make sure that everybody was taken care of.
Right.
So when I was a kid, like as an adult, I realized it is probably the best thing that I could have ever done. But as a kid, man, we'd go visit my grandparents for the weekend. Like my parents would send us, my sister and I, to go visit my grandparents. And we'd spend the whole weekend at nursing homes visiting,
Mm.
and like just going in and like talking to old people who didn't even know where they were. And it
Right.
was the weirdest thing. But it was Christmas time. And so my grandmother would show up with gifts. She'd show up with a little Christmas tree that she'd bought out of Kroger or something, wrap it with a little silver tinsel, and just be there for half an hour and be like, you're loved.
Wow.
And like my not my grandfather, because like my grandpa, my grandfather was gone, but my grandpa was like, well, whatever, dude, I'll smoke a turkey. Y'all go have your fun. And so my grandmother would drag us around all over Houston.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a map of Houston, there's Humble and Hull, which are up to the northeast, and then there's Katy out to the west, and then there's Cypress out to the north. Dude, we'd hit them all. We'd just be on the road all day long and go hit these places, which seemed like we were there for like 4 or 5 hours,
Oh
and
yeah.
we'd just be on the road again. But like that was what we'd do at like Christmas time. Like not maybe some like we were out for 2 weeks, so I'm sure my mom would just send us to go to grandma's house for a couple of weeks. But yeah, we'd burn up the road visiting old folks
You know, you,
in
you got to think about that though, because, and I'm sure there's people that still do that, but that takes something, man. I mean, we need more of that, really.
I agree. I did not enjoy it when I was a kid.
Sure.
Like
Well, that's not a kid thing.
I'm gonna sit here and be like, man,
Yeah.
that was not what I was
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah,
But
I don't
as
know
a
about
grown up,
taking the kids to these kind of things, but the fact of just loading up a bunch of stuff and going and visiting people that the island of misfit toys, right? I mean,
yeah,
to a
right.
certain extent, and I mean that says a lot about your grandmother, man.
It was. I mean, she was kind of the matriarch of the family, obviously, because she was the one that she was the glue.
Yeah.
When she passed away, I mean, when she died in like I think '88, something like that. I was like 13, and it was rough, but like the glue that held the family up together. She was like, well, grandma's gone, so nobody makes the phone calls and
Right.
pulls everybody together.
Yeah.
And so like for me, and that's where I've always been like, well, what are we doing? Nothing. Call somebody. We gotta like I can't be as all over the place as she was because I'm already too all over the place as things are. But hey, let's find out something to do. Let's figure something out. So,
Yeah.
but I mean that's a run along segment, but I mean that's one of those Christmas memories of like, why are we here? And
Right.
then like years later, it's like, oh, well, that was why.
Yeah.
There we are. So
Yeah. That's incredible. I mean, I think that's pretty awesome.
I think so.
And I still think, it's still not something you would want to drag kids to all day because they're going to be going, I just want to get out of here.
Oh man, I've got stories like, oh my god,
Yeah, I'm sure.
we go home.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, so that was my dad's family I was talking about earlier, and on my mom's side, which my grandmother was kind of that person on that side. She was the one that made things happen for any kind of holiday or any kind of get together. And it's kind of the same deal when she passed. I mean, we would have relatives that came from, 30 miles away that would always come and celebrate with us and stuff. And it just came to a screeching halt when she passed, and it's sad, but that just shows you that that's what glued it all together.
Mm-hmm.
And we still see each other and we go, man, I wish we'd get together sometime, but nobody picks up the phone, right? Nobody does that first initial, hey, why don't y'all come over?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It and it's funny even in the internet age. We're just like,
Yeah.
hey, everybody, let's get together. Even if it's we don't necessarily need to get together, but just like a conference call.
Right.
Like how weird is the outdated technology? But then you have Zoom, and it's like not only can we conference call, we can conference call with video.
Yeah.
Like, like I do that all day at work. I'm not doing it.
But the options are so much more convenient now, and we're even further away from it.
it it's and not to bring it downer on the What's Awesome podcast show, but I think it's awesome. Christmas memories. Here we are on like episode 38 and 9, 40. Where are we? I don't know, but how it's like, oh hey, you and I have met once in person. We've been in the same room one time,
Yeah.
but technology has made it to where we can just have this sort of conversation. We see each other. We're
Yeah.
more or less in the same room. You got guitar and drum gear behind you. I
You got
kind of do
guitars?
too. I mean, it's yeah. You just have to reach out and tell people, hey,
Yeah.
man, you should come over.
Yeah.
We should jam. We should pick up that old guitar and make a song again.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it matters, dude.
It
So
does, and I think we lose that because we do get so wrapped up in what we're doing personally that, and again, it's a generational thing, right? I think our grandparents came from a time where each other was really kind of all you had,
mhm.
so it meant more, you know. And of course, you're talking about generations that grew up with farm families, right? I know that all my family, their past were they were had family farms, so you had, you know, 7 or 8 brothers and sisters, and you all had responsibilities, and you grew up together, and you depended on each other. So those get-togethers for them was probably way more important than it was to me, who, has fond memories of everybody being there. And just like I said, Aunt Poochie a while ago. I mean, I'd love to see Aunt Poochie again. I'd love to see Aunt Helen and Uncle D, but they're gone. And
Mhm.
now these are my great uncles and Aunt Tiny. I had a I've got a great aunt that we called Aunt Tiny, and she was anything but tiny. She was a good sized lady, but man, I miss these people so much, and you know that's what makes. Again, it's like the Clark Griswold thing, man. That's what keeps that spirit alive of you inside of you for Christmas and stuff, because you want to be those people for the people that you're raising, right?
And exactly. And you mentioned Clark Griswold, and I've told my wife, not that I have to qualify it, but just every now and then, because I have to go to Home Depot and buy more lights, or I need I'm like, okay, I reserve the right to just go straight up Griswold on everything. Griswold on vacations. He goes Griswold on game shows. He goes Griswold on holiday lights and presents and
Yep.
and trees. Like it's not even it is a Chevy Chase thing. It's a national. No, there's something. There's just that
Yeah.
need to just drive things into the extreme
Right.
territory, and I'm that way. Like Halloween, dude. It takes me 4 days, and like 4 days of crew breakdown. Like, all right, bring down the lights, roll it up, pack it in the box, stack the box. 4 days of like 8 hour days, like 32 hours of straight up packing and moving to just down, like, deconstruct my Halloween.
Right.
I have to take the break between Halloween and Thanksgiving in order to get my old bones back together, because I'm gonna go freaking ape crap on on Christmas. And like today, I started plugging stuff in and like messing with like I have to have the lights not done, but at least in process. Like I'm dissatisfied with my entire everything. Like I need to go buy much. But it's not really for me.
Right.
And you could say it's for me. It's for my kids, dude.
Well,
Because I want my kids to be like, okay, look, like it is for me.
yeah.
I want yeah, I want to be able to drive down the street and be like, that house is awesome, and I want to be able to say that house is mine.
Right.
I want my children to grow up and be like, man, my dad went all out.
Right.
Like you have no idea. It's like, you got stuff? Man, my dad would go to Home Depot 8 times to get the right plug to make, you know, he was changing stuff every year. He was always just trying to make it the wonderland that we remember as a child.
Yeah,
So for me, it's for my girls, man. Like
sure.
I'm yeah, but it's also for me. I
Yeah.
want to drive down the street and be like, dude, that's awesome.
Well, it's that thing of even when you use Clark Griswold as the example, we're the same way. We want to have that experience again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something about the labor of doing all the lights and stuff takes you back to when that thrill and excitement of what Christmas was when you were a kid. It instills it in you again, and that's what you're trying to share to your kids and
Mm-hmm.
grandkids growing up of how special of a time this is, because they're flying by, dude. I mean, just like you
It
said, I mean, it blew my mind when you said your youngest is 10 years old.
My youngest just turned 7.
7. I was about to say, man,
Yeah, my I was gonna say, yeah, no,
your
don't
oldest
don't
is 10
don't
years
don't don't
old.
do that. My oldest is 10 years old.
But still, that still is crazy, you know?
Well,
Um,
and then you look at a movie like The Christmas Story.
yeah.
That's it's become a classic, but I mean, yeah, that was contemporary to me. I mean,
Mm.
that dude's my age, I think, maybe a little older. Uh, was it Peter Billingsley,
Yeah.
who was the the dirt bike
He sure
kid.
was, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but like he and I are the same age, so right. But I mean, he's playing like late 30s in Christmas Story,
Right.
but still, like, you want the present. Your mom won't let you have it. You're running around. You got your neighborhood. You got your friends. You got your kid. Like there's something about neighborhood life that just that transcended. I mean, it's
Sure.
lasted 100 years. But I could sit there and watch that, and those are not my memories, but they're close enough. It's kind of like watching The Sandlot in the summertime, right? Like
Right.
there's every now and then something comes along. It's the perfect movie, but it just encapsulates all of your feelings.
Yep.
And even if you didn't have it, that's what you wanted.
Right.
You didn't want some stupid coach yelling at you about like throw it harder, man. Like you could deal with your friend with the glasses telling you to throw it harder because that makes you throw it harder.
Right.
And Christmas was always that kind of time with friends and family where, you're playing football in the front yard with your cousin. He's smaller than you. He knocked you down. You're like, oh, but wait, I'm bigger than him. So you knock him down. You just
Right.
hit that little bit harder. And it's, mom comes outside. You're like, no, don't hit your cousin so hard. Like he's not complaining. All she saw was
Right.
a scrap. So
Oh. So another interesting character I'll bring up, Aunt Polly. Aunt Polly was originally from Michigan. She was my grandfather's sister, so my great aunt. Um, had a lot of money, but uh, not very tactful. I guess is the right word. I just never will forget that she was down here and stayed with us for a Christmas, and we're all over at my grandmother's house, and I think they bought Aunt Polly a present to open right for Christmas. She opens it up. I don't even remember what it was. I just remember her going, "Well, what am I supposed to do with this?"
oh no.
So I never will forget that, man. I mean, it's different when you hear a 4 or 5 year old kid go, "Great clothes," because you expect that. But here's a grown woman that's probably in her 60s. What am I going to do with this? She was something else, man. Oh. Oh,
So if you want to get into weird real quick, just no, I won't stay here very long because it's so my wife's grandmother
okay.
was so we've been together for frickin' ever. The first time we ever went to Seguin, my wife's hometown. So I've met her mom, her stepdad. I'm meeting the family for the first time. Her grandmother, her mom's like, well, hello, and just like grabs my hand and pulls me close, and I'm just there, like, and my wife's had to tell me because I'm on a show, like a comedy show with you. I'm on a horror show with Scott. Like I don't have a very good filter.
Yeah.
Like it takes a lot for me to not say the F word on this show. You know, like it's like sometimes I have to really think about what I'm saying. But wife's like, be good. So like grandma was like, hello. And then for 10 years after that, like every time I'd see her, poor wife, she's like, hey Helen, and Granny Helen, her grandmother's been like ripped up by Alzheimer's, and
Oh yeah.
Granny Helen's like, I don't know who you are, but I like him. It's just at Christmas time. I'm very much like, well, this is weird. Like, she told me I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, I'm getting flirted with by my wife's grandmother all the time, and like in very, and it's very sweet because she wasn't like lascivious or anything weird, but it was very weird whenever you've got a grandmother just like reaching over and grabbing your hand a little tighter, and you're just like,
Right.
I'm just the boyfriend. And then later on you're like, well, I'm just the new husband. And then after a while you're like, dude, I've been around for a long time. You need to quit that.
Oh. So did I tell you about of course when Becky and I first started dating, we started dating around Thanksgiving. And I don't know if I told you this or not, but my mom was so against me dating her because don't you see she's just wanting a Christmas present.
Like, if you'd only known.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, yeah. Fortunately, I think she's glad that I didn't run her off. But I think she thinks more of my wife than she does of me. But I never forget that. I was like, wow, my mom just came out and said it. She's a gold digger.
Dude, I have that from time to time where I'm like, Well, I think right now is a good time to take a break and play some old Hallmark commercials or Folgers commercials or something. We'll be right back.
Opening now at Sears, a Christmas of red ribbon values, including Sears' best-selling video game, Video Arcade. On sale now for only $134.99, our lowest price ever. And don't miss the full assortment of game cartridges available at everyday low prices. Or try your hand at Sears' wide selection of 1- and 2-player handheld sports games. Our everyday low price is $12 to $13 lower than last Christmas. To wrap up a beautiful Christmas, you can count on Sears.
McDonald's presents gifts your kids will love. Holiday Huggable Muppet Babies. You can get your kids Baby Kermit or Baby Fozzie or Baby Piggy for a limited time only. They're soft and huggable at a special low price with any McDonald's food purchase.
Muppet Babies at our place.
Holiday gifts at a special low price.
Good night, baby cookies.
Holiday Huggable Muppet Babies. Only at McDonald's for a limited time. So hurry on in.
It's a Radio Shack Merry Christmas.
Look, we can save $300 on this Tandy 1000 computer. It's PC compatible and only $399. With color monitor, it's $699.
The kids would love this for Christmas.
The HX is easy to use, with desk-mate software included for my word processing, your budgeting.
And the kids' homework. And games.
Let's get it, for them.
2.
The Tandy 1000 family of PC-compatible computers from $399, only at Radio Shack, the technology store.
All right, so Christmas memories. Different so disappointments, right? Like we mentioned we had toys.
Yeah.
We had different. So I remember one year we were going to grandma's house and either my mom or my dad let it slip. You're getting a car.
Whoa.
Yeah. Dude, I was like 10 or 11 years old, so I was old enough to be like, my grandparents drove this like blonde colored Lincoln Continental. I'm like, that's probably not that. Like, well, the people in their neighborhood every now and then drive golf carts, so maybe it's a go-kart, maybe like a little dune buggy. Like, we get there, and it actually turned out to be pretty cool. It was pretty awesome, but it was not as awesome as a dune buggy. It was like this little pedal car that I was just a little bit almost too big for.
Yeah.
Where it's like a bicycle pedal, but the bicycle pedals were on. It wasn't even like a bicycle spindle where you've got a central gear with the outside pedals.
They pump back
and
forth.
Like the pedal car where it's like, man, that was that was some tongue biting right there, being like, isn't it great? Like, dude, they paid money for this, and I was at the point where I was like, man, I bit my tongue because it was really like, on a 4-hour drive up there, I'm sitting there like, imagine myself like cutting donuts in a beach. I got this like blonde girl beside me. Like, I've got this whole lifestyle cut out of reality, and I get there and it's like squeak, 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 squeak. Like, oh.
I've got one to go with that because one year my grandmother and grandfather on my dad's side got me a watch for Christmas. And in hindsight, I wish I still had it. It was a Snoopy watch. And he had a tennis racket in his hand, and the second hand was a tennis ball that went around. I opened it up, and I cried.
Oh, no.
And they're like, what is this? Like, I don't even know how to tell time. Because I was, 6, 7 years old, So I was upset because, it didn't have numbers on it, because it was a, stylish watch, I guess, for some reason. But yeah, I remember just being just crushed because it's like, you're showing me my weaknesses.
You want to hear some, my grandmother was really good with gifts. Like, whether she was good with gifts or not, she shopped at Neiman Marcus. she was pretty well off, and so this is around 83, 84, like 9, 10 years old. She bought me one of the original Casio G-Shocks.
Wow.
Yeah. Which in 83, 84 probably cost $50, $60.
Yeah.
But she gave it to me, like, hey, look, I'm wearing a G-Shock right now. But the thing was so, like, it was a big digital with all of the rubber around it, and it was unwieldy, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And at some point I did something and it popped one of the pins on and it ended up in a jewelry box somewhere. I did not mean to be unappreciative. Like, I was 8, 9 years old. Like, I mean, come on, right? And I looked that thing up not too long ago, and like, those things are going for like $3,000
exactly.
For like the original ones. I was like, Oh man, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
oh man.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that about a lot of stuff, you ended up with, and you're like, if I'd only held on to it, man, it'd be worth some money. My grandmother was real hot and cold, man. She's the one that got me the Jacksons cassette and then the Bluegrass cassette. She's the kind that she would give you like a digital dartboard and then a decorative lamp. I mean, it was just like, okay. But the lamp would be like something an old lady would have in her house. It's like something you would not want at all. And it's like, nice try. I mean, you did really good on the dartboard, but this one I'm worried. Did you grab something and just wrap it and put your name on it? Because
Well, I was gonna say because the other grandparents, like my grandmother, my dad's mom, and not to knock them because they were. My dad would say like when I was a really little kid, like 3 or 4 years old, I'd be like, well, there's grandma and then there's good grandma.
right.
And like that was my mom's parents because they lived far away, so they didn't have to have babysitting duties and they didn't get involved with much. They were just down there. So
Right.
whenever they'd show up, and they also come to find out later, I didn't realize this when I was a kid, they didn't really like my dad that much. So they would give me presents like dartboard or dartboard,
Yeah.
trumpet, drum set. Like they just show up and be like, "Merry Christmas. Here's drums." And my dad was like, "Why are you going to give my 5-year-old a drum set?"
Right.
And so there was this, I don't know if it was Bugs Bunny or Disney, but it was this short that played often where somebody is playing one of those big chest drums, like one of those big deep
Yeah.
bass drums, like in a marching band,
Right.
and somebody walks up and pops a fork in it, and it like
Deflates.
flies around the room like a balloon. So my grandparents buy me this drum set. My dad, being the saint that he was, actually set it up. Because if it was me, I would have just put that thing, I would have put it off for weeks and weeks and weeks until they forgot they actually got a drum set, and then I would have just given it to somebody. And then like 2 years later, they'd have been like, "Didn't we get something?" I'd be like, "That must have been a dream." Yeah. But anyway, I got this drum set, and I was, again, being a stupid little kid, drum set gets set up. The first thing I do is go into the kitchen and get a fork because I want to pop it and watch it
deflate
around the room. And my dad sees that I popped a hole in the drum set, and he's just like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "Well, I popped it in the front, so like the back of the drum, like the kick drum, still worked, but
Yeah.
pop." He's like, "What did you do?" And well, wraps it all up and was like, "Well, it's all messed up now." But yeah, but I remember my dad being terrified. That fork was probably the best thing that happened to him because otherwise, I would not have been like. I would have been like,
right,
for like months, and he would have just been.
Yeah, I mean that's. I also got my first real drum set for Christmas as well, and even though I don't want to downplay it because, I mean, it changed everything for me, but this drum set is in rough shape. Basically, my dad took some carpet and recovered them with carpet because they were in such bad shape. But yeah, that's what I learned to play on. But it's that thing too where, when you first get them, you're like, I'd been messing around with my Uncle Bob's drums, which is a whole story in itself. My Uncle Bob bought a set of drums in 1973, which are called Trevally, Ludwig Trevallies. The thing about those is they had lights inside of them. So they were acrylic drums, but they had lights in them. And they got sued because they had ripped off this guy's patent.
Design.
Yeah. And they could only make so many of them, so they quit making them. So he had bought this set in 73 for, I think it's $3,000 in 73.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so when you're a kid and you see these kind of things and you say that your dad, hey, what do you want for Christmas? And you go, I want a drum set. So in your mind, you're thinking something like this because you didn't know how much they cost. And then you get a set of drums that's covered in carpet. You're kind of going, okay. But, again, why spend that kind of money when you're not sure if it's going to stick or not? But, yeah, I got a whole bunch of stories about that drum set from my uncle because I took him to New York. We played a showcase at CBGB's of all places. And,
oh, wow. You got to play CBGB's?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and
I know a lot of bands did, but that's history right there.
Yeah, we were doing a showcase for it's like 6 or 7 record labels at the time, and I took that set of drums, and before we could get off the stage, there was a guy standing off to the side that was going to catch me coming off the stage. I know this has nothing to do with Christmas, but he basically said, "If you'll bring those down to my store." Which I'm just down there. He said, I'll let you have 3 sets of anything you want for that drum set.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, no, I can't do it, man. And he's like, you know what you got, don't you? I was like, yeah, I do.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a, and the thing about it, he bought them down here in McKenzie, not far from where I live. It's a little place called Chandler's, which there's a whole story of Chandler's, too, because this guy had bought all these guitars and stuff through the 60s and 70s, and they never sold. And they just sat here for all these years. And then back in the early 2000s, Gruen Guitars out of Nashville came and just bought everything. And I'm talking Vox teardrop guitars and all this kind of stuff. It's like, wow. Well, when my uncle bought that set of drums, they ordered another set immediately because they thought, man, they had just set those up, had them in the window, and they sold like in 2 days. So they ordered another set, and they never sold. And they set back in that store, still in the plastic, had never even been set up. And, that drum set's stuff of legend now. I know who's got them. I'd love to have them.
Do you have those originals?
My uncle does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had them for a long time, and I did some repairs and stuff on them, but they're back where they belong. He's got grandkids now, and he's trying to teach them to play, and I mean he's the reason I played drums. But
dude, yeah. Well, that's why I can't get rid of any of mine. We had that on Christmas. I got my first guitar.
Yeah.
I didn't learn how to play it. I didn't learn how to play a guitar for 20 years. I got my first guitar, I think, when I was 7.
Yeah.
And then, maybe 15 years. I was 17 or 18 whenever I got the Stratocaster. But the first guitar, sitting right over there.
Yeah.
Learned on guitar, sitting right over there. Stage guitar,
right,
sitting right over there. These things, it's funny because every now and then you'll read a book or a short story about, like Harry Potter. It's like, oh, you've got the wand, and the wand's got your essence because you've held it so long, it matters. That's the way it is with guitars, really, because put, especially you pick up and play a couple chords or whatever, but your heart and soul is in, your blood is in this,
right?
At some point, and the best Christmas present you can give somebody is a musical instrument. My poor daughter, she's like, you keep making me play the ukulele. I'm like, yes, I am. You're gonna get so mad at me, but
well,
I'll put.
You got to find that.
I'll put it like this: I know a lot of people when I was a kid who hated having to go to piano lessons.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any grown-ups who know how to play the piano that are angry that they know how to do it.
Right.
They might be pissed off that they had to go to lessons.
Yeah.
They might have stories about how much it sucked. They're not upset that they can do it.
Right.
So
Yep.
it's
the big picture. It's the big picture down the road, right? I mean, and that's the thing with the kids is, you just have to let them try different things, see what sticks. And it may not even be music, but you at least want them to have a creative outlet. And my daughter's the same way. I mean, you buy all the different things, and you start off with little cheap guitars, little cheap keyboards, just trying to get her interested. And there's always that thing, right, of just trying to get them going some sort of creative direction. And hers was more into video editing and stuff like that. It's more of what she kind of finds. She's got a Cricut, so she makes all kinds of labels and designs and stuff like that. So but it's all about getting that creative thing going, right? So yeah, always when you're thinking about the Christmas thing and what do you get them, you're trying to invest some way, right?
Man, with my kids, it's just seeing them. It's weird because before we came to record the show, my kids were watching this Disney special. It's the Goofy holiday thing or whatever, where it's like the son's not so into it, and then he's like, all I wanted to do, like, he's helping the neighbors and stuff, and it's one of those weird things because I had a conversation with a buddy of mine. And it's it can go deep because he's got 2 little girls, but his little girls are much younger than mine. Where he's like, dude, what do you? He's not very religious. He doesn't have any kind of base in any of that. So he's just like, well, what do you say? I'm like, well, wherever they land on any side of the spectrum, I always want them to remember their childhood as magical.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's too much crap in the world to just be like, well, there's no Santa Claus or blah 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 blah.
Right.
Like, well, how do you know there's no Santa Claus? Because like in the Goofy movie, Santa Claus might be the guy down the street who just, in the spirit of Christmas, decided to share dinner. Like, you never know. They're like, there's always a Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, no, I want there to always be. As long as I'm alive, there's a Santa Claus. Because
true.
I'm gonna light my neighborhood up as bright as I can.
Yep.
I'll give as much as I can. I will have as much fun as I can. And yeah, I want that little kid with their thumb in her mouth, to walk around and be like, oh, walk around the world with wonder.
Right.
And then when she is in her 20s with her, husband and children, I want her to tell her husband, like, dude, you have to decorate the house because it matters. And maybe I inspired somebody long after I'm gone, like Christmas memories. That's what it's
all about. So it's all about. And like you said, that Christmas spirit is that same thing that drives you to do these things and create those traditions. I think about what we currently do with Jade, our granddaughter, is every year around this time, we go to a place called Discovery Park. And at Discovery Park, they've got this big drive-through Christmas light show. You tune your radio to a station, and the lights are dancing to the music, and you drive through this thing, and it's, we've already seen it. They're not really going to change much, but it's tradition. And that look on her face, whoa, with all the lights, that's what it's about. It's that magic. And that's why I love this time of year, man, because it does show you that those things are possible. It may be hokey to some people, but that's the goodness in life. This is what you're passing on. This is what you want to be remembered for, is those moments that are the whoa moments, even if it's some rinky-dinky lights, right?
I think the whoa moments, like you said, I think that's honestly, that's why we do the show. Like, what's awesome?
Sure.
I mean, everything that we talk about, I think most of what we talk about matters in a philosophical way. If you want to break it down, like, oh, hey, here's a subject. Yeah, it matters. We could talk about it for a while.
Yeah.
But in reality, like, we wouldn't talk about it if it didn't really hit us in a serious way. Like, we'll laugh about it. It's funny, or it's cool, or it's special, or whatever. But these things matter. Like, the things that you experience in life matter.
Right.
Like, and when art and comedy, music, history, all of those things ratchet itself up in a proper way, we call it awesome.
Yeah.
But it matters.
Yep.
And so, yeah, while we are a lighthearted podcast, like, we're more or less a comedy podcast, because when I'm mixing the show, most of the time when I'm clicking through, all we're doing is laughing, which is what we're doing.
Right.
That's the point. But yeah, dude, the spirit of the holiday, the spirit of Christmas, the spirit of everything is here.
Yep.
It matters.
Yep, it does.
You matter, and even if you like low-key humor, like my poor daughter, she's like, we've got the carpool. This sucks because I'm 45 years old. And I'm about to, she's like, oh, there's my friend. Can I go play with her? I'm like, no, you may not, because we have to go home. She's like, why? I'm like, because homework and ukulele practice. She's like, my other one was like, boo. I was like, but if you want to run home and see if there's something like an egg or something we can throw at them, then we can circle the block. And both of my daughters are just like, Dad, you need to grow up. I was like, I don't think I ever will.
Yeah, it's kind of like the end of all the South Park episodes, right? I mean, you're watching this goofy, crazy, outlandish show, but at the end they always have, a purpose at the end. You're like, well, how about that? It does actually mean something. So, yeah, I mean, it's all these things are our genetic makeup of who we are, and so we call it, what's awesome, but really, it's the things that are the building blocks of who makes us the people that we are. And, it's no doubt that Christmas is a big part of that for both of us. And we want to make sure that it is for our generations to come. I don't know, man. To me, there's a reason it's my favorite time of the year, and it's because of the possibilities, of what it can be. It's a shame that we set aside a couple of weeks and decide to have peace on earth,
Right.
So as soon as that's over, it's like, I'm having a New Year's resolution, and you're right back to, the regular world.
Yeah, same way. Like, why can't we just be nice all the time?
Right.
Like, what if we just kept the lights on all the time?
Yeah.
And not in a weird sort of way, but just like, well, no, it's still Christmas. Well, it's still Halloween. You didn't bring down your Halloween decorations. No, but come over to the house. I'll throw you some candy. Like,
right.
Sounds kind of crazy cat lady stuff, but really, it would be fun, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Well, I think we have a couple more shows coming up in 2020. Hey, man, if your 2020 has been a crap fest, as honestly, mine has been a complete effing show. But I've been able to hold it together, as you might have seen, like from a couple seconds ago. I've been able to hold it together, so you should be able to hold it together. We've got some stuff coming up next week. We're going to, I think, have some guests on. And if we don't have some guests on, well, then it'll be a lost episode where you're gonna ask where were the guests, and the guests didn't show. So
Yep.
as of right now, we've got guests coming on next week, and
I hope it's Santa Claus.
yeah, it might be. As for the way the year's been happening, it could be.
I hope it's Santa Claus and Rudolph and Vince Neil.
Dude, that was so awesome. I never saw that until you said Vince Neil. I was like, oh man.
I'll post it. You'll see it.
All right, guys, we're getting close to Christmas. We love you. We'll see you next week.